Welcome to Significance Breed Success. Today I have somebody from California, highly educated, Pepperdine University, gorgeous if you've ever been there. Dr. Jacqueline Sanderlin has her MED. She is a rock star. You'll see her enthusiasm, her passion for what she does, being around the Compton and Inglewood schools. Those are challenging, right? Like those are I've been down to Compton and Inglewood. I've worked in a couple of those schools, super challenging,
Yeah,
but amazing humans doing good work down there. So you've been
absolutely.
doing curriculum specialist, you've been assistant principal, principal, district office administrator, executive director of school. Thanks for being on here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to be here talking.
So you've done everything. I mean, it looks like you've done everything.
It
And
means I'm old. That's what
and
that
and right before this, I was like, Pepperdine
Pepperdine.
is no joke. Like
No.
that is, it's hard to get into. It's a legit,
Yeah.
it's a legit school, university. So absolutely love it. Let me ask you this: why education? Like, what's the purpose? Why did you spend the last 20 years of your life transforming little humans to bigger humans?
Yeah. Well, that's because the answer is really I didn't anticipate doing this work. I was very much into media. I loved everything, the industry. I was an intern working at ABC, CBS, and NBC, and throwing away trash, emptying trash cans, copying papers, doing things I didn't think I was going to be doing because my degree was in communications. So I accidentally fell into the role of education. And little did I know that it was no accident at all, that my dreams to become Oprah was really supposed to be to educate youth and really empower them. But what's so interesting is that, some things that we think we're supposed to do, it turns out that I believe I was supposed to really be in education, but in a different way. And I've been excited about really sharing that message.
That's awesome. So you spent 18 years in Compton. Now, people think of Compton as like tough, like it's tough. I believe it was Compton. Don't maybe you'll know better. I went to a McDonald's one day. I believe it was in Compton, and they had the bulletproof glass over the windows. So
Right.
um, they're serious. They mean business in Compton.
You're right.
How was and it's interesting because our first school was in Liberty City, which is the most what the FBI counts as the most violent neighborhood in Florida. So
Wow.
challenging youth, but super amazing kids. Like absolutely love it. They just grow up a little different than I did in
Right.
nice, sweet Cupertino, California, where Apple Computers and HP and all these other big wig companies were. What drove you to support the more challenging neighborhoods? What drove you to Compton?
Well, that's a great question because I did not grow up in Compton. I also grew up in a very sweet, different community, middle class family, and I probably thought we had more than what we actually did, but I heard that they were having a teacher shortage during that time. It was like 1995, 96, and they were having a teacher shortage, not only in Compton, I think all over California. And so I applied because my parents got tired of me waiting at home to be discovered and in the entertainment world. And they said, hey, you got to eat, so go and apply. And they're looking for a degree, and if you're promising to get your credential, like I think they were providing emergency credentials at that time, because that's how much the need of teachers were. So I did, and little did I know that I was going to enter into an, I don't even see it as a job or an occupation. I really entered my purpose. Okay,
Mm,
I entered my purpose when I was a special education teacher. But before I looked up, I was a curriculum specialist. Then I was promoted to assistant principal. Then I was promoted to principal. If it lags, okay, I'll go back. So, I just kind of kept going up the ranks of, teacher to administrator. And I just fell in love with it. But I fell more in love also with the human beings that were there, because what I saw on the media was very different than what I witnessed when I worked there. Of course, the media portrays things as much more bleak. And when I got there, I met some really great people, very smart individuals, scholars that were amazing. But I'm not going to say the challenges were not there. I mean, I had a very high percentage of foster youth. We even had some that were homeless or experienced homeless. My school was very much in a gang gauntlet. So I had to really make a decision. And the decision I had to make was, do I find a way to exit this community, or do I empower this community? And it was a decision that I was faced with if I was going to continue.
That's really powerful. Because I think there's so many people that have a heart, but they don't have the grit or the vision or live on purpose to be like, you know what? I want to solve a problem in my life. I want to do something most people aren't willing to do. When you look back now, what are the skill sets or what was like the mental attitude or framework that you either developed or you had when you started or when you were into it that kept you focused on creating real results every day? Because we have foster care students, we have some homeless. I got a call yesterday, and one of my buddies is an investigator. The other one called me actually yesterday. Both of them called me yesterday. One of them's like, we got a girl that's sex trafficked. Today it was a girl that ran away from home. It keeps running away from home. Well, there's a reason why she's running. So, right. Does she have the right coach or mentor? They say a lot of time, like therapy. We'll send them to therapy. And the kids don't want to go to therapy because they don't want to be vulnerable.
No, it makes you feel like you're crazy or something sometimes. You know what I mean? It makes you feel like you're the problem oftentimes. And I'm not saying they don't know if they're bad, but I'm saying I understand, because I've had many of those conversations with some of my scholars. By the way, you're going to hear me refer to them as scholars, because I feel like if you speak into the life of them, they will rise to that occasion. So I call them all scholars, whether they acted like a scholar or not. But in answer to your question, there was a couple of skill sets that I came there with a skill set of a sense of humor. So I'm really glad. I'm a gregarious person. I love to laugh. My family is like that. My dad's like that. So I'm glad, because that helped me to really get through a lot, which was not to take things personally and to really learn how to have fun with my scholars, and not and even you haven't got cussed out real good if you got cussed out in Compton, okay, by a parent. So you learn grit from that. But one of the things I had to learn was I would say absolutely, was I learned how to build community. And that was a skill that took over. Now, 22 years span, particularly in the administration role, I learned how to build community. And I remember when that happened, when I decided, I went to a game that day. I went to a game meeting one day. I remember that. I was like, I had to think innovatively, because when you're in high poverty schools, you're not the same equitable support, finances, everything runs short. And if you're not able to think innovatively, then you do run short. And I know my gentlemen, my young scholars who were often suspended, didn't have father figures, had a lot of challenges, needed an innovative program. So I created a program called Gentlemen Scholars. And it was an after-school program, and I grabbed every male that I could who would stay for an hour, share their life and experiences and skills and mentoring with our young men. But they were also looking through the gate at the gang meeting that was held next door to my school, because we were on the same land as a neighborhood park. And that community park was more of a gang gauntlet. You know, it was just a place where you didn't want to walk through to get to the other side. And I decided one day, with my very naive young principal self at the time, to go to the gang meeting. And I went to that gang meeting with the purpose. Now, I went against the recommendation of my secretary. She said, I don't think you ought to do it. School police said, don't do it, don't try it, because there's multiple gangs there. And I said, I'm going, because I had a purpose to, if I was going to make a change in my gentlemen scholars, they couldn't see a gang meeting every Tuesday. And so I went and asked them, would you mind moving your gang meeting to a local, I don't know, hotel? They were like, no, excuse me, what? And I knew at that moment that I was disempowering the community, albeit it was negative. I didn't live there. They did. And really, that was exactly the moment that I knew that I started to develop what I call a why not mindset. And I said, you know, why not ask them on the campus? Now, school police said, I can tell you why you shouldn't, because you got, you know, rival gangs. And I did. I invited them on the campus. I asked them to share their story, because you and I know everybody has a story. And I asked them to share their story to my gentlemen scholars. And I'm going to tell you something, Daniel. I could not believe they shared about how not to get in gangs. If they had a choice, they would have taken the road out, but they had to drive. And to see those young men, and I'm going to call them that because they're young men, crying and tearing, sharing their story. And they continued to stay on. And I'm just telling you, this is a success story. One of them went back and got his doctorate degree. You know, that would have never happened had I not decided to the understanding of building community. And that's exactly where I learned it.
So I find military and law enforcement put themselves in the way of potentially giving their life every day. And if you would have listened to some of the other people in your school, then, I mean, you were willing to put your life for the kids. It's very interesting to be able to see who does that and who doesn't. Wow. I know a lot of educators. I've probably trained, 5,000 in, 25 states or so. Wow. With different things, and another 10,000 law enforcement, in the last 5 years. And then we had the first 5 years, it was all over the place. It was tens of thousands of kids. And it's just crazy to see how many people will not do what you did to like reach out, because the gang members, they want to be loved. That's why they're part of the gang.
Right.
They just want attention.
Family. It's their family. And here I was trying to break up a family, realizing that they were, while they were gang members, they actually lived in that community. So, right.
I absolutely love what you did. So let me ask you, how hard, and I know the education system in some parts is very challenging due to policy, curriculum, time periods for classes on like a class, you need to have this much time for this class. How challenging do you see to implement what you did, which I don't think it's challenging because you just do it, but to get other principals and administrators to be involved? Because what I've seen is they're like, oh, it's too much liability. Oh, a gang, we got to metal detect it. Oh, I mean, there's all these liabilities that, and I get it, liability. I pay a ton of money for insurance in our schools.
Right.
And I find if we don't do that, then why are we even in education in the first place?
Right. That's right. Exactly. That's my point. Exactly. Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. So how do you get more principals to buy in
Right.
And or how do you get more